We are told prisons exist to protect society. But what if the real purpose of the system isn't justice, it's profit? Our team uncovered a chilling financial network hidden inside the US justice system, a system where punishment is predictable revenue and human misery is an asset class. This is not conspiracy. It's a trillion-dollar economy built on incarceration, the millionaire prison system. It looks like a legal institution, but behind its walls are private investors, bondholders, and corporations profiting from every phone call, every meal, and every inmate. Taxpayers believe they are funding justice, but in reality, they are funding one of the most efficient profit engines in modern history. Our investigation exposes how this system converts human freedom into dividends, and how 4 hidden financial mechanisms are locking millions of Americans inside a machine that cannot afford to let them go. The first step of the illusion begins before anyone enters a cell. The real profit engine starts with debt, a debt imposed by the court system itself. In the United States, over 11 million people every year are charged with minor offenses, unpaid traffic tickets, administrative fines, or late court fees. Each of these is recorded as a debt obligation to the state. But here's the twist. The debt is rarely managed by the state. It's sold. Local governments outsource these debts to private collection agencies, companies often tied to the same investment funds that own private prisons. These agencies tack on service fees, processing charges, and interest penalties, multiplying a $75 fine into a $1,000 debt within months. It's the perfect legal debt trap. You miss one payment, and the interest doubles. Miss another, and a warrant is issued. Suddenly, a traffic ticket becomes an arrest record. That arrest feeds the next layer of the system, incarceration. What makes this even more disturbing is the data trail. In multiple states, like Alabama and Missouri, our team found that these debt collection contracts were negotiated not by state officials, but by lobbyists representing private prison corporations. It's a feedback loop. The same entities profiting from incarceration also profit from the debt that leads people there. One insider described it to us bluntly. They're not selling punishment. They're selling people over and over again. And the system is designed so you can't escape it. Even after release, former inmates owe supervision fees, drug testing fees, and even probation service fees. Failure to pay means rearrest. The debt becomes infinite. This isn't criminal justice, it's financial slavery with legal paperwork. But that's just the first layer of profit. The second is far more direct and far more profitable. The private prison industry. On paper, it sounds efficient, a way to reduce government spending by outsourcing incarceration. But in practice, it's a business model that only works when cells stay full. Here's how it works. Private prisons are paid a fixed rate per inmate per day, often between $100 and $200, depending on the state. The fewer the prisoners, the lower the revenue. So to stabilize income, these companies insert occupancy clauses into their state contracts, legal requirements forcing states to maintain 90 to 100% occupancy. If crime drops or judges issue fewer sentences, taxpayers must still pay the company as though the prison were full. This means the system literally profits from high incarceration rates. Our team obtained one such contract in Arizona. The state guarantees a 97% occupancy rate across multiple facilities owned by a single corporation. If that target isn't met, taxpayers must pay vacancy penalties. In simple terms, justice reform costs money, while imprisonment makes it. Behind the scenes, these companies employ armies of lobbyists to maintain strict sentencing laws. They fund political campaigns, influence judicial appointments, and support legislation that expands criminal definitions, ensuring the flow of bodies never stops. In 2023 alone, private prison operators spent over $10 million on lobbying and political donations in the US. Every dollar spent lobbying is an investment in keeping people inside. One executive once bragged in a shareholder meeting, "Our growth is directly correlated to sentencing trends." Let that sink in. For them, a longer sentence is not a tragedy. It's a quarterly win. And just when you think the cycle couldn't get darker, it does. Because even before conviction, when a person is still legally innocent, the system finds a way to monetize their existence. That's where the bail industry comes in. Bail was designed as a simple promise: show up to court and you get your money back. But in America, it's become a multi-billion-dollar marketplace where freedom is collateral. Here's how it works. When someone is arrested and can't afford bail, they turn to a bail bondsman. The bondsman pays the full amount to the court, and the defendant pays the bondsman a non-refundable fee, typically 10%. If your bail is $10,000, you pay $1,000 up front, money you never get back, even if you're innocent. The shocking truth? Most bail bond agencies are backed by major insurance corporations and hedge funds. They treat human liberty like a short-term, high-yield investment product. And for those who can't pay even the 10%, the result is predictable: jail. Across the country, hundreds of thousands of people sit behind bars every night, not because they've been convicted, but because they can't afford freedom. In 2019, 4% of all inmates in local jails had not been sentenced. They were simply too poor to leave. One public defender told our team, "It's pay to leave prison before you've even had a trial." These three mechanisms, debt, occupancy, and bail, are the gears of the machine. But the fourth is the engine that powers them all. It's called financialization. It's the process of turning human systems, like justice, into investment portfolios. Wall Street investors don't buy prisons. They buy the bonds that fund them. Cities and counties issue correctional facility revenue bonds, debt instruments that promise guaranteed returns based on projected inmate numbers. In other words, mass incarceration has been turned into a predictable income stream. Private equity firms invest in prison phone companies that charge $5 per minute. They buy commissary vendors that sell toothpaste for $8. They profit from ankle monitors, digital tracking systems, and re-entry programs. Each one a small piece of the incarceration economy. It's a web so intricate that even city budgets depend on it. Entire municipalities now rely on fines, fees, and jail contracts as steady revenue. Reducing incarceration would mean losing money, not just for corporations, but for the towns themselves. This is how justice became a banking system. Every arrest feeds the bond market. Every fine funds another investor. Every human life becomes a line item in someone's profit statement. Between 2010 and 2020, US states issued over $3 billion in prison-related municipal bonds. The interest from those bonds continues to flow to institutional investors, even as the facilities themselves decay. So when politicians talk about tough-on-crime policies, remember, Those policies are often profitable contracts disguised as morality. The public sees crime rates. The investors see cash flow. And the consequences are everywhere. Families destroyed by debt. Communities hollowed out by incarceration. Generations trapped in cycles designed not to rehabilitate, but to generate returns. In one Louisiana parish, our investigation uncovered a small-town jail where inmates were charged a daily housing fee, as if they were tenants. Those who couldn't pay were assigned extra labor to work off their debt. It's modern debt peonage, a legalized, profitable form of human exploitation hiding behind the words justice system. And yet, despite countless reports and congressional hearings, the system survives because it's too profitable to fail. Now we reach the heart of the story. Why does the system resist change? Because reform is bad business. Reducing sentencing means fewer bonds, fewer fees, fewer dividends. The money pipeline depends on keeping the system full. Even proposed reforms, like electronic monitoring or probation, are financialized. Private companies run the monitoring systems and charge by the day. Probation officers are sometimes contracted through private firms. Every alternative becomes another revenue stream. So what can be done? The answer isn't simple. You can't boycott a system you're forced to fund through taxes. But exposure is the first defense. When the public understands how the system actually works, the illusion of justice begins to crack. Our investigation found two truths that define this entire network. First, the occupancy clause. It legally binds state governments to maintain prison populations, a contract that turns justice into inventory management. Second, the debt trap. The endless cycle of fines, fees, and private collections that feeds the prison economy from the outside. These two forces create what we call the millionaire prison loop. A loop that starts with a fine, becomes a debt, turns into incarceration, and ends with a profit statement. To those benefiting from it, this system is perfect. To everyone else, it's a cage. But we believe information is the first weapon against it. The more people understand how their justice system was quietly financialized, the harder it becomes for those in power to hide behind legality. The next time you hear about budget shortfalls or crime policy debates, ask the real question: who profits if nothing changes? Because behind every law, every sentence, and every jail cell, there's a balance sheet. And the people who built it aren't interested in justice. They're interested in yield. Our mission is to expose the mechanisms and the people behind that yield. If you believe transparency is the first step toward real reform, join us. Subscribe to the Hidden Wealth File and stay with our investigations. We'll continue uncovering how financial systems, from prisons to pensions, are quietly shaping your world. Because freedom shouldn't be a commodity, and justice should never have a price tag.